In today's session, we will be integrating our network status application with Docker. Our goal here is to create Docker images for both our backend and front-end services and set up a file, a common file basically to run them, and finally sort of connect everything together so that it's easier to deploy across various environments. This setup is going to simplify the deployment, allowing us to run everything together in a single Docker environment, which makes our application more scalable and environment agnostic. So, for this, we are going to walk through this repository, github.com/shardeum/network status. Let me open my Visual Studio Code. So here, so as you can see on the left hand side, we have one folder called backend and another one is the front end folder. So what we are going to do is we are going to build dedicated Docker file for each folder, one for the backend and another one for the front end. And at the end, what we are going to do is build a common file, docker compose.yaml, at the root of the network status, which is basically going to help in its orchestration. By the end of today's session, you will see how these services work together within Docker and also get a full picture of Docker's power for managing applications seamlessly across different environments. I'm gonna go through here step by step, and in the meanwhile, if you have any questions, you are stuck somewhere, please feel free to drop comments. So let's go step by step, and we will start with the backend folder first. So inside here, what we are going to do is, first of all, we are going to create a Docker file. Okay. So, and another one is this entry.sh that we are going to need to run our backend services. So, now we are going to write code here in the Docker file. Step by step, I'm gonna explain each step, why we are doing this, what we are going to do this, what we are going to do. So we will start with having an official Node.js runtime image as the base. So for that we will do from node 20. So here we are using the official node 20 image. This base image basically comes with some pre-configured node.js versions. So here we are using the 20 version, and this is because so that we don't have to install it by ourselves. This basically ensures that our backend environment, it is consistent every time we are running this, regardless of the host system. It doesn't matter, if you are on Ubuntu, if you are on Mac, on Linux, it's going to produce a consistent environment. And also choosing an official image, for example like this, the node image, it gives us a reliability as well as security, since these images are well maintained and optimized. Next up, what we are going to do is we are going to set up a working directory. So for that, let's do work dir, and we are going to use user source app. So basically, what this does is, this command basically sets user slash src slash app as a working directory in the container. Think of it like changing directories on your local machine. Okay, everything we do after this is going to be based inside this directory, which basically keeps our files organized, and it is easy to locate within the container, like where is this file located and everything. um, Next up, what we are going to do is we are going to copy our package.json file, and after this we are going to install dependencies. So for that we have to do npm run install. Also, you see, like, first we have copied the package.json file, and next, so first of all, we have copied the package.json file inside our container, and then we are running npm install, which is going to install all the dependencies that were listed inside this file. So basically, yeah, everything is going to be installed, whatever is there in this file. By doing this separately from the code copy, Docker can basically cache the layer if package.json hasn't changed, meaning that we can reuse this step without rerunning npm install every time that we build. So now we have npm install. Next, what we are going to do is we are going to copy all the remaining files. So for that, we have to do copy dot dot. There should be space. Yeah. So here we are copying all the remaining files from our backend directory on the host machine to the container. This is going to include our actual code base, like all the services, all the data, like all the necessary files that are needed. And this includes like our code base, our configurations. This is needed to basically move our code from the host machine to the container. And after this, we are going to install Prometheus. So for that, we will do run apt get update and apt get install Prometheus. So this line installs Prometheus. It's a powerful monitoring tool into our container. Prometheus will let us track and analyze our backend's performance. We will also copy over the Prometheus configuration file right after this. So you can see we have here prometheus.yaml file. It has all the configurations. So this is the file next that we are going to copy. So let's autocomplete this. So this Prometheus.yaml file customizes how Prometheus operates, specifying which data to gather and how to present it. So as you can see, like where we have copied this. Next, as you can see that we have one script here called entry.sh that we are going to take a look after we complete this file, but we have to make this script executable. So for that we have to give it certain permissions. So for that, let's do this. Okay, so this command basically makes our entry script executable, ensuring that it has all the necessary permissions to start both the backend server as well as the Prometheus. And if you guys remember that our backend, it is very much dependable on the Prometheus server. So it's very important for us to have it running. And after this, what we are going to do is we are going to expose the ports that are 3002 and 1990. So 3002, it is for the backend API, and the port 9000, it's for the Prometheus. Exposing ports is essential because it lets our host system access the services that are running in the container. And after that, we are going to use our entry.sh script, which is responsible for starting both npm start for the backend API and the performance. So let's do cmd entry.sh. Yeah. So yeah, this entry command, it runs a script that's responsible for starting both the backend API as well as Prometheus. And for running this service, we need to make sure that our backend and Prometheus server is running accurately so that our front end runs. And when we will be building our Docker compose.yaml file, we will see how it is dependent on the backend. Now let's take a very quick look at our script. Yeah. So this line, so basically in the script you can see, so basically this script, it's a shell script that serves as the entry point for the container. It handles the startup of both the backend services as well as the Prometheus. And the line number 1, this basically specifies that this script should be run in a shell environment, which is of course very important. And next we have npm start. Let's break this script into multiple steps. First up is npm start. It runs a backend service with npm start in the background. Running it in the background allows basically the next command to execute simultaneously, ensuring that both backend as well as Prometheus both are working fine. And next this line Prometheus, and next we have our configuration file, and it's listening on the port 9090. It basically starts the Prometheus with the specified configuration file, which is prometheus.yaml, and it sets it to listen to the port 9090. So this is our entry.sh file, and basically this is all for our backend Docker file. With this setup, our backend environment will start with Node.js and Prometheus configuration, and they are sort of ready to go. Now let's go into our frontend folder and build a Docker file here. So I'm gonna do Docker file. Yeah. So this is going to be very similar to what we did for backend, but a little bit different. So we will start with adding a base image. So for this also we will use nodes image, but a little different. So this line, so basically this is a lightweight version of Node.js 20 that's based on Alpine Linux. This makes this final image smaller and basically faster to pull. It's saving us a lot of time and the space when we are deploying. And next what we are going to do is we are going to install the dependencies. So we are gonna do from base as deps run. Yeah, this, and next we are going to create a working directory as app. So here we name this stage deps, as you can see here, and add any system dependencies or that our app may need. In this case we have added this. It's basically a library that provides compatibility for some required system functions. And next we are going to install the dependencies based on the package manager. So what we are going to do is we are going to copy our package.json file and package log.json file. Yeah, and let's do run npm ci. Okay, so by copying the package.json and the package log.json file and then running npm ci, we are basically ensuring that the exact dependencies that were specified are inside the package log.json are installed. Using npm ci is ideal here because it's faster than npm install, and it makes the build more predictable by strictly following the log file, whatever the content, whatever the dependencies that we have in the log file. Next up, after this, what we are going to do is we are going to move to the builder stage. which focuses on building the front end code into the static files that are basically ready for production. So let's do from base as builder, no, and we are going to set up a working directory as app, and after that again we are going to copy everything from depths, and we are also going to copy all the node modules that we have, and yes, again the node modules. Okay, so let me just pause here and explain this step by step. So the builder stage, it starts with a clean base image, and here it's the node 20 alpine, and it sets the working directory again as app. We are bringing over the node modules folder from the dev stage to the builder stage, so that we can avoid anything, so that it doesn't reinstall everything. Okay, and this line, the copy dot dot, it basically copies all the source files into the app directory here, that we have mentioned on line number 11, getting our application code and configuration files ready for building. So this was basically our builder stage. Next up, what we are going to do is we are going to set up our environment variables. So here we have two environment variables. So the first one is next public Prometheus URL range, and we are going to make it to, yeah, so no, this is not localhost 1990, but this should be backend 1990, and I guess this queries to, yeah, the query range exactly. And again we are going to set up one more uh, environment variable, next public Prometheus URL, and let's see what we have here. So this is not the backend, this is going to be the localhost 1990. We are going to query, but what we are going to query is we are going to query Shardeum, right? Shardeum here. Okay. All right. So we are setting these environment variables to configure where the front end should send requests. So for monitoring data from the Prometheus, we will see this in production how it looks. So the first variable, the next public Prometheus URL range, it points to the backend of the Prometheus endpoint on the port 9090. While this environment variable, next public Prometheus URL, it sets the endpoint for the specific query. These URLs, they tell the front end how to interact with the backend service. After this, we are going to do npm run build, and this line triggers npm run build, which compiles the next.js app into a production optimized static site. Building at this stage also allows us to separate the build artifacts from the development dependencies, which basically keeps our final image lean. With the build artifacts ready, we can create a final minimal production image to run our app. So again, now let's go to our next stage, which is from base as runner, setting our work directory as app, and let's do environment node is in production. Yeah, so here we start with a fresh base image and set it to production mode by defining node environment as production. This is going to optimize the node.js runtime for production, and it ensures that our app it is running efficiently. So next, after this, what we are going to do is we are going to create a new user called next.js and one group called node.js in the container. So for that, let's do run add group in the system. We can do this, and now let's do run. Let's add a user as well in the system. As next.js. Let me explain what we just did here. So these commands basically create a new user and a new group. So the user is called next.js and the group is called node.js. In the container, running our application under a known root user, it enhances basically security by limiting the permissions. So that's why we did this. Next up, we are going to copy over the compiled static assets from the builder stage. So for that, let's do copy from builder into app public. Okay, so next up, what we are going to do is we are going to set up the right permissions. For that, let's first of all create a directory called next, and let's do node.js dot next. Okay, so after that, let's copy the essential files that are needed for running the standalones. Next.js server reduces the final image size by only including what's necessary for production. So let's do copy from builder stage. Make sure that you are copying it from the right stage, because we have here dapps, builder and runner, basically 3 stages. To next.js, app, standalone. Okay, next we are going to copy the builder stage. Okay, let's do so it should be same, next.js, node.js, and it should be copied into the static, because that's what we need. Okay, so as I mentioned before, these lines at line number 33 and 34, we are basically copying all the essential files that are needed for running the standalones. Next.js server, and it reduces the final image size by only including words necessary for production. Now let's switch to our Next.js user that we created before. Switching to the Next.js user here ensures that our application does not run with root privileges, which is a Docker security best practice. Next, we are going to expose port number 3000, the default port for a Next.js app, allowing the container to communicate with the outside world. Next up, let's set up the environment port, which is 3000. And after this, we are going to run the command. Let's do node and server.js. Yes. So finally, this command at line number 42, what this is doing is it's specifying the node server.js, which is going to run the build server.js file to start the application. This command launches our optimized Next.js app in the production mode, fully ready to serve client requests. To recap here, uh, to recap this Docker file, we have used multi-stage builds to keep our production image lean and optimized. We have installed dependencies, built the front end, and copied only the necessary artifacts that are required for production. We set up the environment variables to connect with Prometheus on the backend, and we are exposing the port number 3000 for the app and using it as a dedicated known root user, specifically because of security. So this Docker file, it creates a production ready Next.js container that helps us to deploy the front-end services in a consistent, efficient, and in a secure manner. So this is all for the front-end Docker file. Now let's move on to creating our final file, which is called docker compose.yaml. Let's do. Okay. So okay, let's move on to creating this. Um, so this file, it's basically the blueprint for running our backend and front-end services together in Docker, ensuring that they can communicate seamlessly. So for this, first of all, we are going to define the version. Uh, let's make the version as 2.8. And next, what we are going to do is we are going to define our services. And here we have two services. One is backend and another one is front end. Okay, so let's go to the backend one. Here we have build, and inside this we have context, and we also have one Docker file. Okay, and after build we have ports. I'm gonna explain each and every step. So the ports are 3002 and another one is 9090, and for the context it's going to hit the backend folder, and for the Docker file we have the Docker file inside backend, and for the networks we are going to connect with the Shardeum network. Okay, let me just stop here and explain what we did. So we have the services at line number 2. This section basically defines the individual services that are required to make our application. Here we have basically two services. One is backend and another one is front end. So the backend service configuration begins with a build section that has context and Docker file inside it. Here, as you can see, we are specifying the context to the backend. This means that Docker will look into the backend directory for the files that are needed to build at this stage. And we have also specified our Docker file as the build file, so Docker uses only this file to define the backend environment, dependencies, and all the other processes that are needed. And after that, we have defined the ports. 3002 maps to the backend services, and 9090 it maps to the Prometheus one, that basically allows the external access to each. And at last, we have the Shardeum network, as network says Shardeum network, allowing it to communicate with other services within the same network. Now, similarly, let's go and define our front end service. So, inside front end, we will have a build that's going to depend on front end folder, and we have the Docker file. And similarly, like backend, we are going to define our ports. So, for the ports, it's 3000. And here we are going to add one thing more, that's called depends on. So this is dependent on the backend, but you noticed that our backend, it's not dependent on the front end. So so you have to make sure to mention what's dependent on what. And also, let's add the environment. Yeah, let's do the environment and define our two variables. So one was next public, I think it was backend, it was Prometheus. Okay, let's look it into the Docker file that we just created. So okay, we have them here. Let's just copy these here. Okay, let's make sure that they are right. Query range, yeah. Okay, so at the end we have the network, and two networks, which is, yeah, okay. Okay, all right, maybe let's make a space here. Yeah, so let me just briefly explain what we did with the front end. Okay, so similarly, like the backend, we have the build here, and it's going to look into the front end folder, and specifically for the Docker file, so that it has all the context, which file, what to build in what sort of environment, and we have defined all the ports. And our front end, it is dependent on the backend. We have also defined the environments that it should query into, and the network. And at the last, we have networks called Shardeum network, that's basically acting as a bridge. So it's very necessary to mention here. So just to give you a recap, inside the Docker compose.yaml file, we have defined two services, backend and frontend, each with specific build contexts and Docker files. We have the port mappings that expose the backend and the frontend services, as well as the Prometheus for the monitoring. We have environment variables on line number 22 and 23. These are for the Prometheus integration. And we have a custom network called Shardeum network inside both, basically to link these services together and manage them together. So these this is it for the files. Now let's open our terminal. Okay, let's make sure we have our Docker running. Let me just see. Also, one very important thing, make sure that, yeah, okay, my Docker is running, that you have your Docker running. Whenever you're running this application, I always make this mistake and I always forget to open. So first of all, let's do Docker compose build. Failed to solve of requests, but only one was provided. Okay, let's say we have some error. Backend. Okay, let's go into our backend Docker file and see what's the error. It should copy everything. Let me open this and see where I'm going wrong. Okay, it should have some space here. And I guess I did the same mistake here. Okay, no worries. Let me just pull this and make it big and do Docker compose build again. So okay, let's see where's the error coming from. So inside the backend, run apt-get update. Okay. Maybe it's inside the entry.script file. Okay. It's coming from here. I just open the terminal again. Okay, I forgot to add. Let's try building this again. It should be okay now. It takes a while to build. In the meantime, okay, we have another error. Transport. Okay, here, see here, user. Have the script here, entry.sh. Okay, so I have mentioned the wrong name. It's called entry.sh. Okay, let's rebuild. In the meantime, let me see if there are any questions or comments. I hope my voice is fine. Okay, so the backend has built, now it's building the front end. Okay, okay, we have got another error in the front end Docker file. Let's see, it's not sure why this is not up, but I will maybe let you know on the Discord and see what's causing this. It was working fine before the stream, but in case I will let you know, guys. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, you can share it in the comments. Also, we can't hear your voice for some reason. Uh, but just to recap, thanks everyone for joining this stream, and I will let you know, what was causing the issue. I'm sure it was some random mistake, but in case, just keep an eye over the GitHub issues, the good first issues, and if there is anything that maybe you want to add as a feature, request something, just keep an eye over the GitHub. And yes, if you're stuck somewhere, please let us know. We can debug together. We can hop on a call and discuss. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining the stream. Hope you have a good day.